Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Dukes Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Dukes Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Oh, baby. Firearms Friday. Your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on The Michael Dukes Show. Broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator, and around the world via the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find the audio-only live stream. And, of course, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, the whole shebang. That's what it's all about this morning. Welcome to the program. Thanks for coming in and joining us. We are getting ready to dive into it today. Got some good stuff coming up. Our guest this morning will be in just a few minutes. In fact, we'll be joined by Dr. John Lott from the Crime Prevention Research Center. We're going to talk with him about his latest piece that circulates around the idea of defensive gun use. He had a piece that was up the other day in Real Clear Investigations, talking about how the FBI undercounts the armed citizen responders to mass killers and more, and that will play deeper into the discussion about defensive gun uses as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's coming up here in just a bit. Again, with Dr. John Lott, and we'll see what he has to say. I'm sorry, I'm just making sure that I've got everything up in front of me. All right, yeah, baby. You ready to go over everything and talk about it? Today is Firearms Friday, which is our chance to basically sound off on issues of a 2A nature. We'll talk about guns and gun rights and gun laws and a little bit of everything. We kind of save everything. This is one of my favorite topics, and we kind of save it for one day of the week where we can kind of focus in on it and talk about it and see what's being said about everything. So I'm looking forward to kind of sitting down with you guys and going over it. Later on in the program, we will open up the phone lines for what we like to call Q&A, questions and answers, and it's gun Q&A. So anything that's related to firearms or the Second Amendment, this is where we talk about it. And we're going to dive down into that here in just a bit and get down to it, and we'll see what comes of it. We'll see what comes of it, and we'll get some good intake from you. That's going into hour 2, and then of course, as always, we will finish up with our friend Willie Waffle from wafflemovies.com, who will come in and give us our entertainment report. And he's got some of the entertainment news and some movie and or streaming reviews, because everything's changing these days. You can't keep track of it. We're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna get some stuff changed around for the streams as well. So I want to. I don't even know where to start today, quite honestly. In the gun news category, I mean, I might start with the fact that I don't know if you saw Representative Thomas Massey's tweets earlier this week. Thomas Massey, he posted some tweets up onto his Twitter account that were pictures that, quite honestly, well, this was his quote on this was his tweet along with the pictures. These are not auditions for the next Police Academy sequel. This is an actual IRS recruiting program. And it's a picture of a bunch of people smiling and laughing, wearing tactical vests with IRS CID police on the front of them, using fake guns and pointing them at each other. I mean, I'm not kidding. This is that, including one who is apparently in a wheelchair pointing at somebody with their hands behind their back and smiling like this is the best thing ever. You can't make this stuff up. This is what's going on. You, of course, have heard that the IRS is going to start arming all their agents, and that they were, in fact, looking for 87,000 new agents. And that they have taken it down now, but there was a caveat on their website that sought people who were specifically willing to use deadly force. This was what they were looking for in the job description for the people that they were looking for, which made people answer, it legitimately made people ask the question, what? What? This is what we were talking about. That this is a tax collection agency that is now out there, $700,000 for ammunition, 87,000 new employees, a caveat on their website where they were looking for new employees saying that they were willing to use deadly force. And then you get these pictures. And these pictures are, I just don't even know what to say. It is definitely an interesting scenario. We could, I think that's safe enough to say. Some of these pictures just kind of make you go, what is going on? And they, of course, pointing guns at each other. And this is what the government is working on right now. This is their whole deal. This is exactly what they're. This is the IRS recruiting program. So, just in case you were wondering, nothing to see here. Move along. This is not, it's not a training course. Apparently it was a program designated to and designed to provide candidates with a glimpse of what the job would actually be like. But again, if that's what they're thinking that their day-to-day job is that they're going to come down with guns drawn on average Americans. Okay. I'm wondering if that's really, really what we want in America today. But, there you go. Smith & Wesson, in front of of course, on the hot seat again. The headlines are amazing. Smith & Wesson CEO faces backlash after he blamed politicians for gun violence. This is the headline from for CNBC. But most Americans are probably completely oblivious to the House Oversight Committee hearings that have been targeting gun makers recently. Carolyn Maloney, who is the oversight chairwoman, issued a congressional subpoena against Smith & Wesson because the CEO declined to appear before the committee. Now, what most people don't know was that prior to this, Smith & Wesson and the CEO had been very cooperative about this whole deal. They had been very cooperative in attending and only balked when Carolyn McCarthy started asking for information that had absolutely nothing to do with any kind of legislative purpose. The only criticism, the only other criticism of Smith & Wesson that had been documented by CNBC was a brief comment by an executive from Everytown for Gun Safety who accused the company of being scared to testify. But again, Smith & Wesson apparently had been cooperating with the House Oversight Committee, according to the Wall Street Journal, until Maloney started demanding all kinds of data that served no legislative purpose whatsoever. One of the other things that Maloney and her cronies started going on and on about is that, well, this was $1 billion industry. The CEO of Smith & Wesson refused to testify before my committee and faces the families who've lost a loved one because of his company's weapons of war. The committee will not permit Smith & Wesson to dodge accountability or obscure the gun industry's role in fueling our nation's gun violence epidemic. CNBC went on to say the Oversight Committee has been investigating America's firearms industry. According to the panel, major gun manufacturers, including Smith & Wesson, have made over $1 billion in the last decade, selling military-style weapons through allegedly manipulative marketing practices. They act like $1 billion. That's 5 major gun companies over 10 years made $1 billion together. 5 over a 10-year period. Again, Tom Knighton over at Bearing Arms points out that the cannabis sales, for example, were estimated at $25 billion last year. Even the kombucha market is valued at more than $2.5 billion per year. But then again, she's not trying to put big kombucha out of business, or she's not running for re-election vowing to crack down on the cannabis industry. And what about the alcohol industry? What about many other $1 billion over 10 years? Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of money, $1 billion over. It's $100 million a year. $100 million a year. And you've got all these other ones, but this is the one that she's going to be focusing on. Carolyn Maloney. It reminds me of Carolyn McCarthy. She's the shoulder thing that went up lady that was talking to Tucker Carlson back in the day. I mean, this is it's such a witch hunt. And they can see it right now. They know with the decision of Bruen and everything else, gun control folks can feel the narrative and the ball slipping from their fingers, and they're willing to try anything. Including David Chipman. Remember David Chipman? He'd been nominated to be the head of the ATF, and yet he wouldn't answer any questions and couldn't define what an assault rifle or assault weapon was and everything else. Well, apparently he's got no problem. He's got no problem describing it now. Now that he's no longer up for nomination as the head of the ATF. He said he knows exactly. He says the AR-15 and AK-47 are identical to military guns except for the full auto function. He said he can define what those are. He's quite a bit more forthcoming about using the agency to regulate everything he considers an assault weapon under the National Firearms Act, meaning that they would treat any semi-automatic rifle that has whatever descriptive or cosmetic parts that he wants, that they would be under the National Firearms Act, so it would be treating it like a short-barreled rifle or a short-barrel shotgun, where the government would have to give you permission. You'd have to pay a $200 tax per firearm to do it. He's still advocating that they should be regulated under the 1934 National Firearms Act. This is just, this is crazy. But look, this is what's happening. Since the SCOTUS decision, they are willing to do almost anything to try and capture the narrative back. And this is just one more example of that as we go through. All right, we're coming up on the break. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Dr. John Lott will be with us. We'll talk about his latest article over at Real Clear Investigations. about the underplaying of undercounting of armed citizen responders to mass killers. And I think that will lead into a discussion about defensive gun use and more. That's my hope anyway. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Oh. Good morning. What is the length of pull in a Yugo M70 underfolder? You know, I don't know. I've never actually measured it, Daniel. I'm not sure. It's comfortable to me. One of my favorite firearms is the M70 underfolder. I would have to get a tape measure out to figure out what the length of pull is on it. Good morning. Rain, go the hell away, but moose season is close. Yeah, it's this has been the wettest August since they started recording it. Also, good call by Willie on the Everything Everywhere All at Once. I haven't watched it yet. It was on my list, and I was going to try it last weekend, and I didn't get around to it, so I'm going to have to watch it here, Daniel. I've been wanting to watch it for sure. Good morning. They will only arm those whose job description includes field work. It's only about 30% of the total employee pool. Okay, so that's good. I mean, only about 26,000 people then. 26,000 new armed agents. I mean, don't worry about it. It's only 30% of the 90,000 that they're hiring. Oh, man. Good morning. How is everybody doing this morning? You guys all ready? Well, I suppose I should get Dr. John Lott on the phone. Let's get it going on.
John Lott.
Good morning, Dr. Lott. Michael Duke's calling this morning.
Hey, how you doing, Michael?
Good, sir. Good. How are you? Are you following along with our ranked choice voting madness up here on the whole Murkowski thing?
Well, yeah, following along some, not so much the ranked choice voting. I'm not sure why you guys felt it was necessary to change the system there on that. But
well, you got to understand the backstory there. The people who were behind it, Scott Kendall, Jason Grant, and others, are former and current Murkowski people. I mean, councils, assistant campaign managers, communications directors. They're the ones that formed the group, the Better Elections, Alaskans for Better Elections, that pushed the ranked choice voting onto Alaskans and then sold it as a way to eliminate dark money. But it's come out now. Veritas has done some videos, and anybody who is really paying attention knows that this was all about preventing Lisa Murkowski from having to go back through another primary because he knew she would lose.
right.
And so, yeah, so it's a backdoor attempt to get Murkowski back in the saddle.
I guess I don't see what ranked choice voting has to do per se with getting rid of dark money. I mean, those are two different issues.
Well, that was part of the problem, is that the provision, the ballot measure, actually violated the single rule clause, and our lieutenant governor was complicit in not stopping it for that reason alone. It did eliminate some of the dark money provisions in the state law, but not all of them, not those that were regulating ballot measures, ironically enough. But their whole campaign was based on, do you want to get rid of dark money in Alaska? That was their whole ad campaign. And the ranked choice voting was almost beside the fact, but they knew that was the one component that they needed to keep Murkowski out of a party primary.
Right. Well, it's pretty clear she would have lost given the vote.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very clear. I mean, just like she did, like I said, this has been going on since 2010, where she's been capitulating and courting the Democrats for those votes. That's how she won the write-in campaign back in 2010. All right. Well, we're about to jump into this, Doctor. I got your article up that you had sent me previously. We'll talk about that. Please hold the line. The Michael Duke Show continues. It is your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Folks, if you're out there, like and share, like and follow, hit subscribe. Let's get to it. All right, welcome back to the program. It is Firearms Friday, your chance to talk about issues related to the Second Amendment. Joining us on the program this morning for discussions is Dr. John Lott, who is the author of many books, including The War on Guns, More Guns, Less Crime. He writes for all different kinds of news outlets, including his latest piece, which is now up on Real Clear Investigations, one of his latest pieces. This came out just over a week ago, and it kind of dovetails nicely into one of the things that I like to talk about, which is defensive gun use. The title of this article is How the FBI Undercounts Armed Citizens Responders to Mass Killers and How the Media Plays Along. Dr. John Lott joins us this morning to discuss it. Good morning, Doctor. How are you?
Doing great, Michael. Good to talk to you again.
Yes, thanks for coming on board. I appreciate it, and appreciate you sending me this article. This is a really clear outlook as to why, I think how the news media is kind of complicit in furthering this mantra of, well, there's not enough good guys with the guns. Oh, it doesn't really matter. It's, just leave it up to the police. And so can you walk us through this article from start to finish here and kind of give us an idea of, the genesis of this, and then and lay it out for us?
Sure. Well, just recently we had an incident in Indianapolis where there was an attempted mass public shooting at a mall. Some people were in fact killed, but there was a law-abiding young man who was legally carrying a concealed handgun who quickly intervened and stopped it from being worse. The murderer in this case still had about 125 rounds of ammunition when he was stopped. So God only knows what types of havoc that he would have been able to create. But what made this story unusual is that the fact that the law-abiding citizen who stopped the attack got national news coverage, because I've seen time after time after time similar incidents, and they'll just get local news coverage. And so, immediately afterwards, though, you had national media going out there and saying, well, this was very unusual. This just doesn't happen with regard to citizens stopping these types of attacks. And of course, then you'd have all these other experts getting on there being interviewed saying, well, it's a dangerous thing to let people like this stop these attacks because they'll likely accidentally shoot bystanders and what have you. So we've been collecting these incidents where civilians have stopped what would have been mass public shootings. One of the things that happened was the Associated Press, the Washington Post, New York Times, and you name it, other news outlets start citing reports from the FBI on active shooting cases. Active shootings are much broader than mass public shootings. These are cases where a gun's fired in public, not involving some other type of crime, and it may just be somebody's just trying to shoot one person,
Right.
And so the FBI claims that from 2014 through 2021, over those 8 years, there were 11 cases where civilians stopped what otherwise were active shooting instances. I can give examples of 41 such cases. And again, I'm only looking at places where police have said a mass public shooting. So I'm much narrower. So if you were to use the same definition as the FBI, I'm sure it'd be a lot more cases than the 41 that's there. But there's a huge gap between 41 and 11. For the Associated Press reporter, I contacted him, said, look, the report that you're looking at is missing lots of cases. Here's a list of them as well as news links to them so you can double check. I got an email back from him saying, well, he had accurately reported what the FBI said, so there was no reason to update or correct his story that was there.
Well, the FBI and even the FBI is acknowledging that they're pulling the information. They actually have an outside source that collates that information for them and gives them to them. And you're saying that they're missing some of these things, and the FBI even acknowledges that the report is not exhaustive, right?
And the people that they hire at Texas State University to put it together acknowledge that it's not exhaustive. One other part of the story is I've approached the FBI in the past about these missing cases. I did so about 5 years ago, and I did so again when I was working at the Department of Justice up until January last year. And the thing that's upsetting is that the FBI, even when you can get them to acknowledge that they're missing particular cases, they refuse to fix their list. And they know how their sources are being used by the media. They know how their sources, their reports are being used in court cases around the country. And yet they refuse to update it, even when they privately acknowledge or in writing acknowledge that they're missing particular cases that are there. And so, it's just disappointing that the FBI is like this, and at the same time, the media isn't interested in checking this too.
Well, and as pointed out by Gary Mauser in your article, I mean, the question is this deliberate bias or just incompetence? I mean, that's the major question here, because as you said, the FBI and bureaucratic officials know how this data is being used by the mainstream media, and when presented with alternate or additional facts in this case that would tip the balance in the other direction, they balk at that. To me, that falls heavily in the camp of deliberate, thorough bias.
Yeah. No. Well, in fact, unfortunately, I've come to believe that it's pretty clear bias. If one of the things that's been most shocking when I've been working in the Department of Justice is just how across a range of different issues, the FBI basically stonewalls you getting data that they think might be damaging to political causes on the left. And how I actually even had, when I was arguing with people about inaccuracies in data, have FBI data people respond to me, well, I'm a Democrat, as if somehow that's a useful response when you're going and pointing out errors in data.
What?
But
What? I mean, I'm a Democrat, so the facts are different for you. Is that how it works? The facts are complete. I mean, if you were a Republican, it would be a different thing. Is that the? I can't believe somebody actually said that.
well, I've had it actually a couple times. Different people have said that. I worked in the federal government in the 1980s, and I worked more recently. And in the 1980s, if I pointed out data errors to somebody, they would fix it. Now it doesn't seem to be that way. And as I say, I've pointed out these types of errors. Nobody needs to take my word for it.
Right.
We list out the cases and their links so people can check the underlying news stories. Look, police don't put this data together. What Texas State University people did was they'd go back and look through news stories, and it could be they just don't look very hard, or they make mistakes, or don't really search under enough different search terms to go and catch all the cases. Those things are possible, but then you would hope when mistakes are pointed out, they'll be fixed. And
Right.
unfortunately, the FBI people just aren't willing to do that. And look, it's not just missing cases. It's actually kind of misreporting even some of the cases that they have. So you have things like the Texas Fort Worth church shooting from the end of 2019, where parishioners at the church who had concealed handgun permits stopped a murderer who was shooting at other parishioners. And the FBI wants to classify that as security guards who are there. These guys were just regular parishioners. They didn't even keep track of who was carrying concealed handguns at the place. I interviewed the individual who actually fired the shot that killed the attacker there, and he tells me they don't know exactly how many other parishioners were carrying, but it's someplace between 18 and 20. All I can say is that murderer picked the wrong church to go after there,
Right.
with that many people carrying concealed handguns.
Right.
So, and there are other similar cases where they misreported what was going on. They wanted to classify regular citizens carrying concealed handguns as security guards so that they wouldn't have to classify them as civilians stopping the attacks.
So they basically don't want to show that it is possible that an armed citizen can, a good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun, and they want to downplay that. And of course, you highlight that at the beginning of your article with all the various headlines that talk about rare in the U.S. for an active shooter to be stopped by a bystander. Rare. I mean, they keep using the rare. It's such a rare thing to happen, but a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun in mass shootings is not as rare as they would have you to believe. And that actually leads us into the next segment, which I want to talk to you about real quick, which kind of splays off of this, which is DGU, defensive gun use. Because I know that you've had some insight and some looks into this over the years. And that's one thing that in this whole ball of wax that we don't talk about very much is the actual defensive gun uses that in many instances do not require the gun to be fired at all. And that's something that the news media definitely wants to ignore. Dr. John Lott is our guest. He is the author of the book, More Guns, Less Crime, The War on Guns, and many others. He's also the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. You can find them at crimeresearch.org. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll continue with him. We'll talk about the remainder of this article that he has up in Real Clear Investigations right now. I'm going to post that up in the in the show on the Facebook and YouTube. And then we will talk a little bit about that defensive gun use as well. We'll return in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Our light, our guide. and our trusted friend.
Michael Duke Show.
Somebody in the chat room, Dr. Lott, just made a great observation, and I think that it plays out, and you've probably seen this more than anybody with your work as a statistician. Laura says data is only as good as the data takers and reflects the data takers' bias. But as you said, it used to be back in the past that if bad data was shown, or if somebody said this is missing, then it would be fixed. But it's become more now almost of a religious thing than anything else. You can't challenge the dogmatic data that I brought forward because it just doesn't fit my narrative, and so I won't take it in. And that, I think, is a major problem with what we've got going on here.
Right. Well, and if you control the data, you can control the whole debate on different types of issues. If the government puts out bad data, academics, when they go and do studies, their studies are going to be biased if the data is biased. And unfortunately, a lot of the academics just go and take the data they're given from the FBI and don't understand how it's put together or what the problems are with it.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think that's the exact example here that you're throwing out there, that basically the AP reporter said, well, we reported the data that we received, and so there's no change necessary. We cited the specific research from the Texas State University over a 20-year period, and that reporting was accurate. Well, the reporting may have been accurate, but if the original report, the original numbers wasn't accurate, then the whole thing is then skewed out, right?
Exactly. And but if it fits their narrative, they're not really interested in kind of delving into the problems that are there with it. So,
and that's the thing. And again, I'd like to highlight something else that you said earlier, that when you first started talking about the numbers, the FBI reported that 4.4% of active shooter incidents were thwarted by armed citizens, and they were using broad definitions of active shooters. You found, even just in the mass shootings, 4, 5, 6 times that number just in the active shootings, let alone broadening your category out to what they were calling active shooter incidents, right? Because you were focusing on mass shootings, they were focusing on active shooters.
That's right. I was looking at cases where police have said many people would have been killed if it wasn't for the presence of a concealed carry permit holder. They were looking at cases where a gun's fired in public and maybe nobody's wounded even, and maybe only one person's threatened. So that there's no chance it could have turned into a mass public shooting, and that wouldn't have been included. And, as anybody would guess, you have instances where maybe only one person's threatened. They're going to be a lot more common than instances where you're going to have a lot of people threatened.
Right. Well, and again, if they are unwilling, and I had to laugh because you posted you sent an email and reached out to the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Center, which is the Texas State University department that collates all this information for the FBI. And I had to laugh because at the end of the letter, she said that she'd sent this. This gentleman sent all the information to the FBI, and he said, "Well, I'm sure the FBI active shooter reports are released on an annual basis. My assumption is that any amendment retroactively adding cases will likely be included in a release with the annual." So they're throwing it together, they're throwing it up the line, but then they're just like, well, we assume that they'll amend the numbers, but there's no guarantee of any of that when it's been brought to light.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. And, it's something that informs the debate. I mean, these are headlines in different newspapers and different media outlets across the country. I mean, the Associated Press gets picked up by literally hundreds of newspapers, not only in the United States, but around the world. And it has a real impact on the debate that's there. And unfortunately, I think that's part of the reason why they don't want to fix it.
Right. No, because again, as you said earlier, it doesn't fit or match the narrative that they built up or that they're working on in their stories or in their papers. I mean, again, just the headlines are all, it's so rare. It's so rare. It's amazing. This is unbelievable. This is rare. Nobody does this. This never happens. Yet we could point to Sutherland Springs. We could point to, I mean, again, 41 just in your look at mass shootings, let alone just general shootings, active shooter situations in general. So, I mean, I can think of a half a dozen right off the top of my head that happened. But as you said, they also don't get any news media coverage outside of their local areas, which I think, again, it's because that narrative of a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun doesn't fit the national media narrative to begin with. Which leads us again into this discussion of defensive gun use. And we're about to rejoin the radio, so let's go back over there. Folks, if you're enjoying on YouTube or on Facebook, please like and share, like and follow the show page. Go check out crimeresearch.org for more information. Let's get back to it. Here we go. All right, we're continuing now. Dr. John Lott is our guest, author of the book War on Guns, More Guns, Less Crime, and many others. Also president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, where he pulls lots of information together and then writes articles for various news outlets, CNN, Fox News, and this latest piece in Real Clear Investigations that talks about how the FBI is undercounting armed citizen responders to mass shootings and how the media just goes along with it. And in fact, just ignores any time you point out that something is wrong, that's what it is. But Dr. Lott, this leads me to a bigger question. You and I have had this discussion before, but many times it's an under discussed topic, which is DGU, defensive gun use. And that's any time that a firearm is used to defend someone or something from some form of crime. And in fact, many instances of defensive gun use require merely the presence of a firearm, no firing, no shooting, nothing. Just the presentment of the firearm usually stops many of these crimes. And when we start talking about gun crimes in America, this is one of the statistics that nobody really seems to want to talk about.
Right. Look, the vast majority of defensive gun use is simply involved brandishing a gun. And you get an idea of, places like the Gun Violence Archive, which will say, look, there's only a couple thousand defensive gun uses a year because they rely on news stories there. If you break down the news stories, what you find is that most of the news stories involve cases where the criminal's been killed. Close behind are cases when the criminal's been shot and wounded. And only about 4% of news stories involve instances where guns are brandished to go and stop the attack. And most of those involve cases where the criminal's been held at gunpoint until the police arrive.
Right.
And if anything, the opposite's true. Our surveys and stuff indicate that about 95% of the time that people use guns defensively, they're used simply brandishing a gun sufficient. So, but look, it's easy to understand why the media covers these things the way they do. If you are editor of a news bureau and you have two stories, in one case, there's a dead body on the ground. In another case, let's say a woman brandishes a gun, the would-be attacker runs away, no shots are fired, nobody's shot. You're not even sure what crime would have been committed if the woman hadn't been able to brandish a gun. What story are you going to cover? It's, the old adage, if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
The dead body is much more likely to get news coverage than an instance where somebody, a woman brandishes a gun and you're not even sure what crime would have been committed.
Right.
So, the gap between the 95% of the time that guns are used to stop crime with, by simple brandishing, and the only 4% of the news stories involving brandishing, and those are somewhat unusual instances even of that, you get an idea of just, even if the media knows about it, they're unlikely to go and cover a huge portion of those defensive gun uses.
Right.
So you're saying that 2,000 cases are underreporting by a factor of 20. What we know is actually happening out there, and so it's just one example. I have to bring up one other point, and that is one of the things I try to make clear in the Real Clear Investigations piece is it's just not the fact that they're missing instances where people have used guns to stop mass public shootings, let alone active shooting cases. You also have to take into account where the attack occurred. Overwhelmingly, these attacks keep on occurring in places where guns are banned. And you can't expect a law-abiding citizen to go and say, well, the guns are banned here, but I'm going to take my gun in anyway. And count that as, a defensive gun use not occurring. But the FBI refuses to distinguish between those two different types of cases. So when they go and they say only 4% of these active shooting cases are stopped by civilians with guns, and therefore make it sound very rare. It's not just the 15% when you go and include the cases that they're missing, but you also have to realize that you should only be looking at places where guns are allowed for seeing the rate. And when you do that, you find that about 40% of attacks, these active shooting attacks, are stopped by citizens with guns. And again, this is undercounting those cases. Even that's a very conservative estimate for the point that we're talking about, that my cases that I have that I'm saying they're missing are instances where a mass public shooting would have occurred, and they're looking at a much broader definition where a gun may be fired and only one person was threatened. So even that 40% is an underestimate, and it's pretty hard, even if you take the 40%, to go and say that that's rare.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting that the owner of the mall in Greenwood specifically, they at least had the common sense to thank and praise Dickens for stopping this mass shooter, even though the published policy of the mall was that no firearms were to be brought in there. They at least had the common sense and courtesy to say thank you to Dickens for stopping this, and they obviously are not prosecuting him for bringing a firearm onto their property. So the irony of that was not lost on me in that instance.
Well, private property owners in Indiana can post signs banning people carrying guns. It's a trespass offense. You basically have to warn somebody, and then if they refuse to go and follow your warning there, then you can go and charge them with the crime.
Right.
But he was not warned, so he couldn't actually be prosecuted. I guess the thing that's disappointing to me is I haven't seen the mall change its policies. I mean, private property owners can decide to do whatever they want to do with their property. I can disagree with them and think that they're making mistakes, but you'd like to see the mall, in that case, kind of learn from their mistake and say, geez, maybe we should distinguish between somebody who's legally carrying a gun and somebody who is not legally carrying a gun.
Right. Maybe a sign that said concealed carry permit holders welcome, or something along that lines, or concealed carry, concealed carry welcome in the mall or something. I mean, you've talked about it in the past. There have been actual active shooters or mass shooters who've actually written in their journals and in other planning documents that have said that they're targeting places specifically because they're looking for a place that's a soft target.
No, that's exactly. I mean, and that's a real example of media bias that's there, because you take something like the Buffalo mass murder earlier this year. In his manifesto, he spends a great deal of time talking about why he picked the target that he did. And right up at the top of the list of reasons is he wanted to go to a place where he knew his victims would not have guns for protection. So it's kind of ridiculous. You think the media, in all of its coverage about the motivations for the guy doing it, and all their discussions about gun control, would at least mention once, but you will search in vain, but at least mention once that he wanted to pick a target where he knew his victims would not have concealed handguns for protection.
Right.
And that's unfortunately not the only case. As you say, on our website at crimeresearch.org, we have a long list of cases where these murderers have listed in their diaries and manifestos and other statements why they picked the target that they did. These guys may be crazy in some sense, but they're not stupid. Their goal, they want to commit suicide, but they want to commit suicide in a way that people will know they were here. And so they want to go and get media attention. That's their goal, is to get media attention. And they know the more people they kill, the more media attention that they're going to be able to go and get. And so what do? They go to a place where their victims are not able to defend themselves, because that makes it more likely that they're going to be able to go and kill more people. So I'm not going to talk about getting rid of the First Amendment or rewriting it in some way. I'm not going to talk about censoring the press, but it still gives us an insight into what can be done to stop these attacks. And the way you stop it is you take away the media attention. And the way you take away the media attention is you greatly limit the number of people they can harm. You take the Indianapolis case. The guy still had something like 125 rounds of ammunition on him when he was stopped by Elijah.
Right.
God only knows how many more people he would have killed if Elijah hadn't stopped him within 15 seconds of the start of the attack. And, so if you stop these attacks by getting somebody there quickly with the gun to be able to go and stop them. And the thing is, so much in the media, so much the call is, well, you need to have an armed police officer in uniform. The thing is, having one person in uniform there, they face an almost impossible task.
Right.
Because if you have one person there in uniform and he's the only person that's armed, who do you think the attackers take out first?
Right.
They know.
Yeah, they're target number one at that point, for sure. Dr. Lott, I'm sorry I'm up against the break here. I got to go. Thank you for coming on board. Hold the line for us for just a second. Folks, we'll continue with more of the Michael Duke Show. Hour 2 dead ahead, Firearms Friday. We'll open up the phone lines, talk with you about this and other topics. Back with more right after this. I want to come back to this real quick, just allow you to finish your thought, because you're right. If you're a police officer or a security guard and you're armed in your fancy suit and uniform, and some guy comes in with a concealed rifle or something else, who's going to be the first person that they're going to shoot? The one guy that's visibly armed, that's going to be the one stumbling block to their master plan. But you could have a dozen people armed in there. I mean, that goes back to the church shooting you were talking about earlier. They didn't even know how many people were armed in there. The guy chose poorly at that response because nobody knew, because concealed is concealed, right?
No, exactly. And the thing is, people have to understand is that when you allow civilians with concealed handguns to be able to go and be in a place, they make others safer. Because the thing is, when the person attacks that one police officer, he reveals his position. And now he has to worry that there may be somebody behind him or to the side who he can't identify beforehand, who's going to be able to step up and stop him. And that makes this risky job of this police officer much safer. If you're going to put police officers in schools, my advice is you should not have them in uniform. You should have them blend in there in a job so that they're not readily identifiable. as police. Have them as the PE coach or something else that's there, so that the attackers won't know who it is that they have to take out first.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, because that makes the most sense. And giving them that uncertainty, even in of itself, would be a deterrent for some of these guys based on, as you were saying, their manifestos and diaries. If they're unsure that there's a half a dozen people in a crowd of 50 that may be armed, that makes it a lot less likely. They're likely to go for a softer target, and they may just even not do it because they're unsure if they'll get enough headline blood to be able to go out in their blaze of glory that they were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious. These guys keep on making statements. If I can only kill more people than such and such did, I can get even more media attention. You look at something like the Sandy Hook killer. He had done what police described as a doctoral dissertation. He had looked at mass public shootings over the previous 40 years. And he apparently had graphed out the relationship between the number of people killed and the amount of media attention that they got, proving
Right.
to himself that if he could go and kill more people, he'd get even more media attention. And apparently, according to one police report, he wanted to go and kill more people than the Norway killer had killed, because the Norway killer had killed 67 people, which is more than any mass public shooting in the United States, because he wanted to get more worldwide media attention than the Norway killer had gotten.
Right. Right. No, I mean, it's a sick game, but that's the way it is. And if the news media would stop fostering this, and I know if it bleeds, it leads, but at some point there's got to be some responsibility amongst news media to say, okay, we can't have 24/7 wall-to-wall coverage on this for days afterwards. We should report on it the day of, and then it should move back to the back burner and go on from there. But it's fueling this kind of attack because of the amount of, and in fact, I think you should not name their names other than maybe the first time you do it, you name their names, and then you just call them the shooter from then on. Not naming them takes away some of that power as well.
Right. But I think even getting named at all, I mean, some of these guys, when you read their diaries, they'll say, look, I know, because there's been times in the past where the media will kind of, at least some of the media will say, well, I'm not going to mention the names. They'll say, even if my name doesn't get mentioned in the news, I'm still going to be in the history books if I can kill a lot of people.
That's crazy.
And these people who are committing suicide feel unappreciated, and they just want people to know that they were here. And, they're
right.
Guys who aren't getting dates and what have you. And we have to, so I think really the only way you're going to be able to stop them isn't just, look, if the media was responsible, what they would do is they would go and report on these guys picking gun-free zones. They would go and change the debate so that we would be trying to get rid of these gun-free zones rather than Democrats pushing for more gun-free zones.
Right.
And because how quickly we can get people there to stop these attacks is how you stop them.
Right.
Look, we have 332 million people in the United States. We have about 600,000 police. You don't have much more than 200,000 police on the job at most at any one point in time. There's simply not enough police in the United States to go and protect all the possible targets that are there.
Right.
Again, if people in uniform, you have huge strategic advantages that these attackers have. They can either wait for the officer to leave the scene before they attack, or if they see an officer guarding one place, they can go and move on to another target themselves. Or as we said earlier, if they want to go after a particular target and the officer's there, they take that officer out first before
right.
they go after the other people that are there.
Well, Dr. Lott, I appreciate you coming on board and sharing all this info with us, and keep writing all this good stuff. I really appreciate you coming on board. Thank you for being part of it today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being there and informing people. And Anyway, I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lott. Dr. John Lott, Crime Prevention Research Center. You can find him at crimeresearch.org. That's where you go. All right, we're coming up on hour 2. I think we're going to open up the phone lines here. We're going to talk about this. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
The Michael Duke Show.
I have 2 guns, one for each of you.
Firearms Friday.
As Thomas Jefferson stated, it is the right and duty of the people to be at all times armed.
Say hello to my little friend.
I say that the Second Amendment is, in order of importance, the First Amendment. The right to keep and bear arms is the one right that allows rights to exist at all.
The Michael Duke Show. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Not be infringed. Firearms.
From my cold, dead hands.
Friday.
Take my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun.
Firearms Friday.
Firearms Friday, your chance to sound off on issues of a 2A nature right here on the Michael Duke Show. Good morning and welcome to the program. Thanks for coming in and joining us. It is hour 2 of the big radio show for Friday. We're here to talk about firearms and gun rights and firearms laws. And we just finished up with Dr. John Lott, who you probably have heard. His most famous book is probably More Guns, Less Crime. He's a statistician that slowly has come around to the conclusion that an armed society is a polite society, essentially, in the long and the short of it is. And he has been writing now about guns and gun statistics and mass shootings and all these things for many, many years. And I think he brings up a lot of valid points, not only in the underreporting of good guy statistics, as we were pointing out in this article that he has in Real Clear Investigations, which if you haven't gone out and read it yet, I posted it up in the chat room this morning on across all the streams. I'll post it one more time for those people that happen to miss it. But it is an excellent article talking about basically the inherent bias in both the news media and in the bureaucracy of law enforcement in the United States. Specifically, he's talking here about the FBI and their classification of who is a good guy with a gun versus who is a bad guy with a gun, and who is just a security guard or who is just a regular old plain, Joe Blow citizen out there. But one of the highlights that Dr. Lott just finished up and talked to us about over the top of the hour was, again, this idea of the gun-free zone. If the news media, he said, was really cared about stopping these things, and of course, I mean, I don't want to ascribe feelings or intentions or motives to these folks, but if it bleeds, it leads. There is also a kind of a bent and a bias in the news media as well. That is a leftward bias. I don't think that anybody would really disagree with that based on the proclivities of the majority of the mainstream news media. But because it doesn't fit into their narrative, they refuse to admit and look at and highlight the fact that many of these instances happen in gun-free zones, that the manifestos and the diaries and the writings and the planning documents of many of these shooters talk specifically about finding a place where they will be uninterrupted, will not have citizens with guns to be able to stop them. But that would be definitely a fresh way to try and basically slow down these instances of mass shootings. But again, I want to come back to the statistical fact that mass shootings still in America, as much as they get the headlines, as much ink as they soak up, and as many clicks as they get, is still a statistically small sample of what's going on with deaths and with violence in America. It's a vanishingly small. I mean, again, it's splashy. It gets the headlines. It's the stuff that's focused on. But when you look at the raw numbers and realize that, you've got 100,000 people dying, in car crashes, when you've got, 6, 7, 800,000 people dying from medical malpractice, when you've got, you could just go down the list and you realize that the number of all gun deaths, which includes suicides, which includes police shooting criminals and bad people, when you realize that all of those numbers, are, in the 38 to 40,000 people range in a country of 332 million people. And again, 2/3 of those numbers are suicides, with only about 12 to 15,000 people actually being murdered in the country. You realize that it is such a small, again, each individual, I don't want somebody to say you're diminishing it. Each individual death is a tragedy. But at the same time, from a cold, logical, statistical, numerical value, you realize that it's a fraction of the number of people in the country. And when you compare it to some of the other means of death, and you start talking about things like, long guns versus handguns versus knives and fists and feet and blunt objects and everything else. And you realize it's a small segment, but it's what the news media, it's what the law enforcement and the political talking heads are talking about day in and day out. That's what they're discussing. All right. I want to throw open the phone lines this morning and see what you guys have to say on any of the topics that we've hit on this morning. It's basically been a lot about the mass shootings and the gun-free zones and the good guys with the guns and all that kind of stuff. I want to hear what you guys have to say. 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150. Any gun topic is fair game today. We'll take that. We're going to be talking with Willie Waffle up at the end of the show today to kind of lighten it up. We're going to have our weekend movie review. That's what's coming up. So I want to encourage you to stick around for that. I need to just realize that I needed to get the phone lines all squared away. There's probably some people who are hanging out there and ready to go. And I need to jump in there. We got a couple phone calls, in fact, right now. So we're going to jump over to the phone lines and see what you have to say. Feel free to sound off and give us the rundown. This hour of the program being brought to you by our friends over there at Satellite West. You can find them at satellitewest.com for all your communications need, whether it's satellite communication or cellular or VHF or, carrier pigeon or whatever. They are the ones that have got this stuff that you need to know. So go out and check them out again at satellitewest.com. Let's go over to the phones here. We'll start things off with discussions with you for Gun Q&A all day. Let's go right here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, Michael. It's Fred in Rhode Island. How you been?
Well, hello, my friend. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, very well. Listen, you mentioned earlier, the CEO of Smith & Wesson made mention that the political decisions by those driving the bus these days in the political world are the reason why we have such a high crime. And I can't agree with them. I can't agree with him more. He's absolutely right. He hit the nail directly on the head. But above and beyond that, the fact that the current political environment, is the increase in crime rates in the country. It boils down to, the ultimate motive of the woke left. I mean, you look at what's going on. They want to say 87,000 IRS agents are going to be armed, and they want to abolish the Second Amendment and take private ownership of firearms away. What does that tell you? I mean, that's more than obvious of what the game afoot is here.
Right. No, I mean, I would agree. I mean, anytime you start talking about it, when you've got 87,000 new agents and they say must be willing to use deadly force in the descriptor of the course, and then they show all these pictures of these people this is not training. This is just like orientation, and they're putting people in flak jackets and giving them, blue guns to play with and point at each other. At some point, you got to be going, what exactly is going on here? I mean, why is this something that's necessary? And I too agree with what the CEO said, that basically a lot of this is being driven. Again, Fred, I was just talking about it. The statistics for the number of people who are killed with all guns, handguns, long guns, whatever, is a fraction of what it is for people who are killed on the highways or drinking or medical malpractice or plane crash. I mean, you could just go through all these things and say, this is a fraction of why is this taking up all of the oxygen in the room?
Well, between the media, who's woke, they definitely got drafted into the BS crowd of the left, and all the other things that are going on. And I think I mentioned this before. You said you mentioned last week or the week before about you don't want to upset the middle ground people. Well, the thing is though, they have to be brought out. They have to be brought up to speed as to what's actually going on. We're being basically corralled into this social communist bullshit BS nonsense as to what they're trying to push. They're trying to get rid of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I mean, today the Second Amendment, tomorrow will be everything else, including the First. And we cannot stand for that. That cannot stand. November has to be a turning point. But we got to start putting the foot down now. We can't allow this to exist. And I don't care who it offends. Because it has to be the truth. I have to believe that it is all fact, it's all truth, and you try to just turn your back because you don't want to offend anybody. Well, I'm being offended. Anybody who believes in having their rights is being offended. So to hell with them.
Right. Well, I don't want you to misread what I was saying there, Fred, when I'm talking about not offending the middle. What I'm talking about is not freaking out the straight people, right? We're looking for support, and we're looking for more people to join the gun culture, and we have to show that to them, the people who are kind of undecided in the middle, not pro-gun, not anti-gun, and we have to show that to them in a way that is appealing. I mean, there is a bit of heart and soul here. There is a bit of marketing. There is a bit of people skills that are required. And so you can't just, you can't freak out the straight people is what I'm saying. The norms, the people in the middle. You're never going to convince the anti-gun people, but those people who are in the middle, you can convince them. And I'm not talking about not making them angry. I'm talking about making them think and not alienating them with rhetoric or something like that just makes them turn their minds off. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I think just exposing them to the facts and the truth of the issue was more than enough to convince them that they're going under the bus too. Not only the conservatives and the Second Amendment supporters and the NRA and everybody else being thrown under the bus by these woke idiots, but everybody's going under the bus, except for the ones that sit on the elite beautiful people grandstand. It can't be allowed to exist. I mean, where are my rights? Where are your rights? Where is anybody else's rights? Regardless of your political affiliation, you all have rights. And the name of the game is you can believe whatever you want to believe in your own household and do whatever you want within your own family and your own realm. However, when you start stepping on somebody else's rights, that's where you draw the line. That's the line in the sand. And you cross that, well,
Yeah.
all hell, you're going to open up a real can of worms, and it's not going to go well.
Oh, I agree.
Anybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that, Fred, for sure. Thank you for your call, my friend. I'm sorry I got to go. I've got one more call on hold that I have to get to here before we go to break. Let's go over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Barbara Haney. I'm calling from the North Pole. How you doing?
Hello, Barbara. What's going on with you?
Well, the key to having good guys with guns is you got to train, right? And the Borough Assembly kind of approved some modifications to the shooting range, so they've been closed. So all you folks out there like me haven't been able to train for a while.
Right.
So it's opening on Friday, August 26th, and they'll be open at 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., except Wednesdays.
Okay.
And so next Friday, head on out there and get your guns out, get some training in. And, of course, if you're going to go hunting, it's a good time to go test out your weapons, right?
Right.
Make sure you
sight in your rifles and everything. What what modifications did they make to the range, Barbara? Do you know what was the upgrades? Did they do some upgrades or something?
I don't know. It looks like they did a lot of cleanup. Looks like they did a little bit of paving. It used to be just a gravel surface.
Right.
I'm looking at it. I don't have all the details of what they're doing, but it looks nicer. I don't know about from a shooting perspective if it matters much, but you get a little bit better steady footing. I guess, if come saw, if you're out there hunting, you're probably not interested in training on a concrete pad, but if you're a defensive shooter, just caring for personal protection, that, might be helpful.
Well, it'd be good. So the range has been closed, and now it's going to be open August 26th at 8 a.m., right?
Right, on South Cushman. That's the South Cushman
range. This is the South Cushman range.
You probably remember shooting there years ago.
Oh, I've shot plenty of rounds at South Cushman, and any improvements they could make would be welcome to that facility because it was pretty bare bones. So anything that they could change would definitely be good. But they do have a nice handgun side and they have a rifle side, so anyway, you guys can go check it out and get a chance to throw some lead down range. August 26th, that's a week from today, down there at the Cushman range, starting at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's a pretty good setup.
Right.
All right.
I think Wednesday mornings are closed for cleanup.
Wednesday mornings are closed. Okay.
Anyway,
and Barbara, I know that you sent me an email, and it's Firearms Friday, but you have something going on too, right? For your campaign meet and greet or something. Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, August 30th at Rocky McAdams' house. There's a fundraiser for myself and Brett Rodermund, and boy, we sure would like to see folks out there. I think Brett has Bulletproof Trailer.
Yep.
I think it's the name of his business.
Yeah.
And I don't know what his memberships are or anything, but I'm a lifetime member of the NRA. I've been shooting for many years. So
all right. So that's August 30th. Where can they find out about it quickly here? I'm almost out of time.
Oh, Haney4FNSB.com.
Haney4FNSB.com. Haney. All right. Barbara Haney, thank you so much for calling in, letting us know about the range. I appreciate that. Folks, we're out of time. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Sorry, we were up against the break there. Sometimes I'm a little discouraged about this stuff. I'm just looking at the number of, all week we've been pushing upwards of 100 people in the chat room. Upwards of 100 people, between 75 and 100 people every day in the chat room. And here it is, Firearms Friday, my favorite day of the week. And there's 36 people between all the platforms. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, 36 people. And I'm trying to decide if that is a function of just, I don't know. I'm trying to decide if it's a function of just being Friday or just that people just don't care about fire. I mean, to me, as I've said previously, when I would go out and talk to people anecdotally, I thought Firearms Friday was the most popular segment of the show because that's the first thing that they would say to me. Oh, I love your Firearms Friday. Oh, I love Firearms Friday. Oh, I love Firearms Friday. And yet the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. Every Friday, it is about a third of what I normally get. Between a third and a half of what we normally have joining us in the chat room. So I don't know. I just don't know. It's weird. I know there's certain people. Of course, Greg is going to love Firearms Friday. Greg is a gun guy. But it's Friday and summer in Alaska, Tawny, but this happens in the winter too. I mean, and what makes Friday different than any other day of the week in that regard? I don't know. I guess it's not disappointing to me, but it's weird. And I've done everything that I could. I didn't use the word gun or firearm in any of the descriptions of the videos. I guess the only thing that you could say is maybe they've got a smart algorithm because we are using the splash screen where I am obviously holding a gun if you're looking at it. And it does say Firearms Friday on the thing there. But I don't know. Is it smart enough to know that? Is it smart enough to figure that out? Is it suppressing my notifications? Did everybody get notifications today? I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. It's odd to me because again, this is the day that I look forward to where I really want to let my hair down and just kind of enjoy a discussion about firearms and gun rights and things like that. And it just seems like we're not reaching the amount of people that we could be reaching. You know what I mean? I guess, thank goodness people are still listening to the radio. Mentally exhausted by Friday, says Brian. Leaving for work, not abandoning the topic, says Tiffany. Well, I mean, I appreciate it. Again, I'm not mad or anything. I find it interesting. I mean, on Friday or on Wednesday, it was Wednesday. It's like 106 people in the chat room. And here we are at 35 with 16 likes. So 35 of you who are watching have not even liked it. Well, half of the 35 have not even liked it. Some of you are on YouTube. I don't know. Do you know how well it does on the radio? Again, Brian, I have no idea. I mean, again, it's anecdotally. I mean, as I met people over the course of years who listened to the program, and they would say, oh, I listened to you on the radio, blah, blah, blah. And I love Firearms Friday. I mean, it was, again, going into this, I thought, oh, man, that's the most popular segment of the show. I have no way of knowing how well it does on radio. No way of knowing. I mean, I guess no, because it's by a weekly basis. Even when my show is playing on rated stations, you can't pick out a single day, so to speak. But anyway, it's. I mean, you got Arbitron numbers, but it's. You usually can't pick it out by a single day. Okay. There you go. Time to jump back into it. All right, let's get to it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, like and follow. Let's get it done. Here we go. All right, we're continuing now. It's Firearms Friday, one final segment here. As we continued on, we've got Willie Waffle coming up here in just a bit, but we're going to take some phone calls, and I'm going to answer questions. We've got one line on hold. I'm going to get to them here in just a hot second. There's lots of questions out there. One of the things, like Greg Collins said, how many CCW holders in the nation? Well, that's a hard number to quantify at this point, Greg, because as you know, many states, in fact, I think, is it 19 states now, do not require a concealed carry permit to be able to carry concealed in their state. And so that makes it much more difficult to figure out how many people are carrying concealed. You got a CCW, which is a concealed carry weapons. It's a permit. I mean, you could pull those numbers, but they're not reflective of the overall numbers because, again, many states now are just going for constitutional carry, which means if you have the legitimate right and, you're not a felon or anything else to carry the firearm, then you can carry it. And so that would kind of skew some of those numbers. It's that's part of the problem. All right, let's go back over to the phones and see what you have to say this morning at 907-433-3150. Again, this hour brought to you by our friends at Satellite West. Let's go over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello, caller.
Oh, hello. Yeah, this is Art Johnson from Fairbanks.
Good morning, Art. What's on your mind?
Well, it's been so convoluted. I love your Friday, but I was calling to find out how I can get a hold of my congressman.
How you can get a hold of your congressman? Well, since your congressman is currently deceased, the best thing that you could probably do is call the office of the late Representative Don Young. Although, again, we're not going to know for another 2 weeks who is going to be taking his place. But
that's what I was afraid of. Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be difficult. But
can you give me that office number, Michael? Do you have the office number?
I can see if I can find it real quick here for you
God bless you, man.
to see where it is. Let's see if I can find it for you. The Fairbanks office number is 456-0210. 456-0210. That's the district office.
456-0210. God bless you, sir.
Yep.
Thanks.
I appreciate you calling.
And I love your firearm Friday, man.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you calling in and being part of it today.
Yep.
and sharing your thoughts with us today. All right. 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. If you would like to sound off, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And we'd love to talk with you about, guns and things in general. I'd love to hear what you guys want to talk about. Ghost guns are in the news, and now, of course, you've heard about the ATF's new ruling on 80% kits and some of the proposed changes. Those are going to be facing legal challenges. Now, for those of you who don't know what an 80% kit is, it is a block of aluminum or polymer that is may have some index holes drilled into it or whatever, but it's basically just a block of material that you, as a hobbyist, would hollow out, drill, machine, and process into building essentially a lower AR-15 receiver. That's what they call an 80% kit. The new guidelines that the ATF has just arbitrarily decided, nothing from Congress, no anything else, they just decided under their own rules, is that they're going to call that 80%, that block of material, they're going to call that a firearm, even though it is not a firearm, even though it cannot readily accept parts. It cannot be, it has to be machined. That's like walking into a Lowe's or a Home Depot or some other place where you can buy raw steel or aluminum pieces and say, all of this is firearms, right? But that's what they're doing. That's essentially what they're doing. And now the gun control groups have really gotten into the mix. Gabby Giffords is now pressuring the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, which is the organization of the former Representative Gabby Giffords, sent a letter on Tuesday to FedEx asking them to adapt a policy of refusing to ship dangerous firearms products that are fueling the epidemic of gun violence in America. Now, there's so much to unpack here. I mean, the epidemic of gun violence, I love how they always use these health-related, like it's a viral term. UPS most recently announced that it would stop shipping packages from companies that sell parts used to make ghost guns, and they want FedEx to follow suit. This is the kind of pressure that you're doing. It's this virtue signaling. It's all these games that are played out there in the public on this. This is a fascinating discussion. But if they start taking away your ability to, ship stuff to, although I have to say, I know lots of people who get their prescriptions through the mail, and that's supposed to be illegal despite all those policies as well. I don't know if this is really going to change anything. I really don't. I have no idea at this point. But again, this whole thing is going to be is being challenged now by the Firearms Policy Coalition and Gun Owners of America and many other organizations as well. So I can't see how this is going to be. I can't see how this is going to be a long-term deal that we're going to have to deal with. Let's just put it that way. All right. We're going to have to go here. We got to go here. I know I got Willie Waffle coming up. I want to get into that. Thank you for calling in this morning and being part of it with us. We're going to continue with more The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, we're in the break right now. We're going to close the phone lines. Let's just do that right now. We're going to close out the phone lines because we don't need them right now. And we've got Willie. Actually, we got one caller on hold. Let's go over there real quick to see who this is. Good morning. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Good morning, Michael. Really quick, this is Bubba North Pole.
Hey.
I thought you didn't let people advertise unless you endorsed the product. And there's an anti-con advertisement that says, "Wow, that's a Michael show."
Oh, I don't. I don't.
Commercial.
Yeah, no, I don't control the commercials that are played locally in between my segments. That's not something that I. Okay. I don't control the local commercials. No.
All right, no problem. I just heard that vote no, and I said, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I saw it come up on the list. Buddy. So anyway, thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. No, I don't have any control over I've never had any control over the commercials that play during the show. I have control of the commercials that play within the show and on the fringes, but not those that play locally during that time. So, all right. I guess that means we're going to
Goodbye.
We're going to close out the phone lines and get all that stuff squared away. Let me close all this out here so it's not affecting my world. Boom. Look at that. Look at that. Got it all squared away. All right. We're coming up here on Willie Waffle. Let me get back into the chat room to see what you guys have been talking about here. Gun Owners of America has a court case against the ATF. I just mentioned that. Yep. And I know that the Firearms Policy Coalition has got it as well. Epidemic. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Criminals. Or epidemic. You mean criminals out on the street shooting people, illegally owning guns? Yeah. I mean, that again, they keep using phrases like that. This epidemic of gun violence. And you're like, what? What? A policy of refusing to ship dangerous firearms products that are fueling the epidemic of gun violence in America. I mean, gun crime has gone up in the last 2 years. I think a lot of that has to do more with kind of the whole pandemic thing and everything else than anything else, because statistically, it's been on the downward trend for years, including record-breaking years of people and citizens buying firearms themselves. So I don't think that... And again, the total numbers are, what about the medical malpractice epidemic? What about the drunk driving epidemic? What about the people being beat to death with hands, fists, and feet epidemic? What about again, we could just keep going on and on, but this whole idea of using the term that's part of their whole thing, is the language and epidemic and making it a health crisis. And we saw how far they were willing to push the health crisis stuff on this other thing, right? I mean, we know exactly what's going on there. So, I mean, it's pretty, whoops, apparently pushed too many buttons. It's pretty insane as to what's going on with that. All right. Let me see what else you guys got going on here. Yeah, this is old news from last month, but this is what GOA is going in their case against the ATF. GOA sue New York over new concealed carry restrictions. Oh, they're going to court over the ridiculous scheme that New York has done. New York is, of course, they've just got their pee-pee slapped over the whole Bruin decision. And so instead they said, okay, well, you can get a concealed carry permit, but reasonable restrictions, we're allowed to make reasonable restrictions. So we're saying you can't carry the gun here, and here, which pretty much covers the whole damn city. So you walk outside your house and you have the opportunity to, commit a felony by walking through a certain street and being too close to some restricted area. You can't carry them on the subway. You can't do, we covered this with Jacob Sullum from Reason Magazine. It's pretty insane, all the restrictions that they're putting on that. I mean, it effectively allows you not to exercise your right, which I think the Supreme Court will go, yeah, that's what we were talking about. That's what we were talking about right there. Guns have become political. Friday is why I joined the Patreon, said Greg. Well, thank you, Greg. I mean, I'm not turning it down. I'm not giving it up. I'm like Rick Astley that way. I'm never going to give you up. I'm never going to let you down. But I am surprised. Let me just put it that way. 34 people in the chat room. I am surprised that we don't have more people that care about their Second Amendment rights. It is the one right that allows all the other rights to exist at all. That is the truth. That is the truth of the matter. That's how it works. All right, we're coming down to, yep, there we go. We got to go. We got to jump back into it. Willie Waffle, phone is buzzing. It's time to get back into it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here you go. Like and share. Like and share this video. Here you go. Okay, we're ready to go now. Diving into it. The weekend movies. We got so sucked up into the entertainment news last week that we had to rush through the movies, and that kind of bummed me out. So we're going to try and pace ourselves a little bit better this week because we've got to talk about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, and the new Idris Elba movie as well. So we're gonna try and get to that here before too long. But first, we got to welcome Willie Waffle to the program. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. Let's just tell them the truth. Last week, the movies really stunk. Well, and there wasn't much to talk about.
Well, I wanted to get to everything everywhere all at once, and we did. And so, yep. I mean, it was, but but there was also a lot to talk about in the entertainment world. So, all right, I know you got some news stories, which I know we're going to break into. You're going to explain to me exactly what the Q rating is for start. You said the Q ratings came out. And I was like, what the hell are Q ratings? So why don't we start with that one, just because I'm curious now. You got my curiosity piqued.
All right. So the Q ratings are a way to measure a star's how well known a star is and how well liked a star is. And it's been traditionally used for, as far back as I can remember. And it's a survey of people from 6 years old and up about 1,800 Americans. And, typically in the top 5 to 10 celebrities that people like and that are very well known,
Right.
it's Tom Hanks, it's Denzel Washington, it's Oprah Winfrey. And there's another guy who usually falls into that category by the name of Will Smith.
Are you trying to tell me that Will Smith may have fallen off the top of the list here?
He's been slapped out of the top 10. Yeah, I
Ow.
thought that would be funnier.
Yeah,
I
no, that
tried.
was good. That was good.
Yeah,
You
okay.
said
Good.
He got the smackdown. That's right. He got
the
slapped.
there you go. So his positive score, so the score of the percentage of people who kind of like him and admire him and they would consider him one of their favorite celebrities, went from 39% in January down to 24% in July.
Okay, that's a significant drop. All right.
His negative score, which keep in mind, the average negative score is about a 16. He went from a 10 in January to a 26 in July.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But you know who's doing worse? Who's doing worse?
Who's that?
His wife.
Oh. Oh,
her negative score went from 29%, which was already high, to 44% in July.
Yeah, exactly. Because some details came out about their life that was like,
yeah,
you're not treating your husband quite the way you ought to be treating him and everything. Anyway, it's a thing, right? But yeah, okay. Well, not surprising. I thought you were going to say like Amber Heard or something.
No. I got to look hers up. I bet hers is really bad too.
Oh, I bet it is. I bet in January it was probably mediocre, and by now it's probably just in the toilet because that woman is horrible. Anyway, yeah, well, that's good. So the Q rating, and of course now we could see, and like we really care or anything. Now, last week we talked a little bit about the Flash, Ezra Miller. This guy who was apparently just arrested, breaking and entering, stealing booze, going into people's houses, just weirdness. And he's finally admitted that he may need a little help.
Yeah, it's amazing what will happen when your studio drops a $90 million movie back onto the shelf, and you're sitting there with a heck of a lot more controversy and a lot more expensive movie coming out real soon.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. He may have had to rethink his life at that point.
Well, and remember, what was the question last week? If they're dropping Batgirl and putting it on the shelf, why are they still doing The Flash with all the controversy around Ezra Miller? Well, he came to terms with that this week as well and announced that he is seeking help for complex mental health issues.
Okay. Well, I hope he gets the help he needs. I really do. I mean, it's obvious the guy's a hot mess. There's something going on there. So I hope he comes back better. There you go. Thanks.
Well, I hope so too. But here's the thing. So now when the movie comes out, he's probably only going to do like one big interview, and he won't talk to anybody else.
Right.
And it'll be all about I went to rehab, and how long did he go? Is he really better? I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of questions. I mean, you talked about some of the stuff that happened. There's some other more serious allegations about like maybe running a cult and maybe grooming young women. I mean, like there's serious stuff out there about this person.
Yeah.
And I really hope that the help is there and the help works, because right now, this is a life that is going off the edge very, very quickly.
Tell me again with Will Smith and Ezra Miller and all the Amber Heard. Tell me again why we idolize Hollywood stars. I mean, tell me again. The Tom Cruise bouncing on the couch and doing the Scientology thing. Why? I mean, why?
I agree, and I think you've seen that in movies. One of the long running debates is who's a movie star anymore? Like who's a movie star that when you hear they have a movie coming out, you go see it no matter what? Like Tom Cruise is maybe like the last guy in that category.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. All right, well, speaking of Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, who is still, even though he's vindicated, he's still having a hard time getting some jobs in front of the camera, although he just inked a deal with somebody for several $100 million for something, but now he's got a gig behind the camera.
Yes, so he is going to be directing this is your career is kind of on the downslide when he's really excited. He's going to be directing a biopic about the Italian artist Modigliani.
Okay, which nobody knows who that is, so it's okay.
No one knows, and Al Pacino is going to produce it for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And Depp's all excited because he's only directed once before. Back in the 90s, back in 1997, he directed this movie, The Brave, starring Marlon Brando, which was, by all accounts, a commercial and critical flop of historic proportions.
Right.
So I don't know if I'm getting all that excited about him directing a movie.
Yeah.
Now like you said, he did pick up an acting gig finally. Why, he's going to star in a European film as King Louis XV. Yeah, things are not going well for Johnny right now. I'll tell you what, though. Here's the deal. Johnny Depp can come back from this.
Oh yeah,
because you know who came back from this? Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah, no.
And
Yeah.
he did that Beaver movie, and he was directing movies and doing direct-to-video things that nobody wanted, and just slowly built himself back up until he got an Oscar nomination a couple years ago.
Well, I mean, and Mel Gibson is a tremendous director. I mean, Apocalypto and Passion of the Christ, and and you're right, he did a bunch of direct-to-video things, but he's still working, and he's worked his way back up. And I think Johnny will be back. I mean, the guy is too talented of an actor not to come back. And after everybody's kind of seen and unpacked everything that was going on and the accusations, you can see that there was some gaslighting going on somewhere on that deal. So we'll see how it comes out. But it'll be good to see him back, finally doing something. You've also got one other story before we jump over some news story that I've already forgotten about.
That's okay.
What the detail where you're going to tell me. Go ahead and tell me.
This will be one of those moments that we will look back upon a decade from now. We'll go, that was the turning point. The moment they went around the corner. The moment that a new era began.
Okay.
In July, for the first time ever, streaming was the number one consumption of entertainment.
Oh, over cable, over broadcast,
and over broadcast for the first time ever. Streaming had beaten broadcast before, but this is the first time streaming exceeded broadcast and cable. Broadcast consumption in July was about 21.6%. Cable was about 34.4%. And streaming was 34.8%.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I have been talking about this for years. This is where it's going. Yeah. This is where it's going. People are cutting the cord. Of course, now you're seeing the screws being turned by the streamers, and now they're like, well, how do we get ads back in here? Because we got to make some revenue on this and stuff. And so you're going to see the prices go back up. But I mean, I was paying $140 a month or something for cable when I had it. I had Dish Network cable. And I'm still paying half that right now. So I'm okay. But I think you're going to see cable and broadcast. They're going to start to fade.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, the big question will be, how will a lot of these streamers do if some of the main sources of their programming are gone? I mean, this has been broadcast TV's argument from day one. Hey, if we're gone, what are you streamers going to show? Because, granted, they do produce a lot of original content, but not compared to like NBC,
right?
Not compared to CBS. I mean,
well, you'll see them shift. I mean, that's why you've got Peacock now. That's why you've got the Paramount, which is the CBS one. I mean, you'll see these things. I mean, this is what's going to happen. This is the direction they're going. They will be subsumed into the streaming platform, and that's how it's going to go. They'll still be over the air, but it'll be a shadow of its former self.
It reminds me of back in the day when NBC, it was around 1997, 1998. I'll never forget this. When NBC one day said, why are we even an over-the-air broadcaster? Why don't we just become a cable channel and dominate cable?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, they're right.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a question, that's what Fox did with FX and everything else.
Yeah.
I mean, they had it both ways. So let's move on. We got about 3.5 minutes here.
Okay.
I want to talk about the new Idris Elba movie. It's called The Beast. Give me the takedown here.
This is maybe the classic horrible summer movie that you needed. Okay, this thing is a disaster. Right? It's Idris Elba and his two estranged daughters. He doesn't have a good relationship with them, and he's going to take them on this vacation to see his friend out in the savannah, and they're going to go on a safari. But there's a lion out there, a lion that's angry that poachers took away his entire pride, and he wants revenge, and he chases any human being who comes close, and he's got his eyes on Idris Elba and his daughters.
Okay.
Oh God, it's so bad.
Is
It's
it
so
bad?
bad.
Is
I
it
mean,
bad?
oh God, yeah. I mean, first of all, the lion looks so fake. Oh
Okay.
God, this is some of the worst CGI you'll ever see. And like his only move is like shocking you by suddenly jumping through the window or suddenly jumping at the car. You're like, oh my God, the lion jumped. But what really takes the cake is when Idris Elba goes mano a mano with the lion. And I'm not kidding. For some reason, they want us to believe that he can box a lion.
Okay. Okay. He is going to be James Bond one day, right? So I guess, okay. -1 to 4 waffles on the Beast. Hit me with it.
-1.
Oh,
-1.
Oh my God.
This is so horrible.
How many years has it been since we had it? I think it was 50 Shades was the last time it was a -1. Ow. Okay. Definitely not going to the theaters to see that one. But the one I've been waiting on, because I've seen some of the trailers and it looks pretty cool, is the new Disney Plus series in the Marvel Universe, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law.
Yeah, Tatiana Maslany as this lawyer and cousin of Bruce Banner who gets into a car accident with him there. His blood mixes with her blood, and now she's She-Hulk. But she still wants to be a lawyer because that's her calling. And, the first episode really is the making of She-Hulk, if you will, like the origin story of She-Hulk. And there's a lot of interaction between her and Bruce Banner. And it wants to be kind of a snarky comedy. And it wants to have these setups and deliveries. And it really avoids any chance to get any real deep emotion. I mean, like you can see Mark Ruffalo. You can see it in his face. Like, this is where I'd get really serious and dramatic if it was my movie. But now I have to tell a stupid joke.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. But it is supposed to be kind of a comedy. It's supposed to be kind of a comedy, right? I mean, that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not a serious movie in any sense of the word, or serious TV series, pardon me. Let's see where it's going. I'm kind of holding it 2 waffles right now, hoping that it gets better as we examine her life in the courtroom rather than just all of her contests with Hulk in this episode.
Okay, yeah. So the beginning, this is just the build up. Only 1 episode has gone down. Is that the deal?
Yeah, 1 episode. They're going to do 1 episode for the next 7 weeks, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Hate them so much for that. That's okay. All right. Well, I'll wait for the whole thing to drop then and we'll watch it. So 2 waffles now. Maybe we'll revisit here in 3 or 4 weeks to see where we come up with. Willie Waffle, wafflemovies.com. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you coming on board.
Hey, you got it. We'll talk next week.
Yes, we will. It's a promise. It's a date. Oh, man.
I got a date. All right.
I got a date. The first time ever. Thank you, Willie. Appreciate it. Folks, we are out of time for today. On Monday, well, I don't know. I'm working on getting some of these more unknown politicians in, and some of these names we saw in this primary that we just weren't aware of. Julie Colombi and maybe some other ones. We're gonna work on that over the weekend, see if we can make it happen. Otherwise, it'll just be me and you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Be kind to one another. Love one another and live well. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Willie, we were talking about how streaming has overtaken broadcast and everything else, and we didn't get to the story about Paramount Plus, which I think is doing a pretty good job. Paramount's actually got some good stuff on it. I picked it up to watch Yellowstone because they were the only outlet that had all of the Yellowstone episodes, but I keep going back to it. They seem to have more and different stuff that I'm really enjoying. And now they're going to join forces with Walmart. And this is going to be is Walmart at the heart of this thing or what?
Well, this is a great move, I think, for Paramount Plus. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I've really enjoyed all the Star Trek series that they've been bringing on. I think they've been fantastic. They're bringing back Beavis and Butthead for people who are into that. And Walmart has a subscription service. Like they want to be like Amazon Prime in that sense. And so, like Amazon Prime, well, we need some streaming. So if you have a Walmart membership, the Walmart membership program. I forget the name of it.
Walmart Plus, right?
What Walmart Plus? That's it.
Right.
Walmart Plus. You will get for free the lowest tier Paramount Plus streaming subscription. So you'll automatically get the subscription with ads, but no local television. So essentially, you'll be able to see all the new streaming stuff, but not watch your local TV show. Which I'll be honest with you, the only time I ever watch Paramount Plus to see local live TV is when I use a service to make it look like I live near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I can watch the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, don't tell anybody. No. Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, I haven't had live local television in 12 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not missed a thing. So, I think that's a fantastic play, a good opportunity. I'm saying the more the better at this point. As long as they give me a tier that allows me to pay for it without ads. That's what I want. I don't want to watch ads. I will pay you 30% more not to watch the ads. I'm totally down with that.
Well, that's what Disney's doing to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still cheesed off about this. So, Disney Plus in December 8th is rolling out their lower price tier with advertising for $7.99,
which is what we're paying right now for
which
no
is what
ads.
We're paying now.
Right,
exactly. Right. Oh, you don't want the ads? That's going to be $10.99 now.
Okay. I figured $3 a month. It will kill. I mean, I will be so agitated. $3 is a cheap price to pay at that point. I mean,
but you know what? This is what gets me. Okay, Disney has talked about this. Netflix talks about this a ton. They want to roll out the lower priced ad supported tier,
right?
Because they know there are people that just don't want to spend the full price.
Okay.
Hey, we all got budgets, right? We only got so much paycheck, and so all of a sudden Disney, instead of rolling out a lower price tier that everybody who wants to get it can get it, oh no, what they're really doing is they're jacking up the price on people who don't want ads.
Exactly.
Okay, come on, let's be honest.
Yeah, they're holding you hostage. That's what they're doing. They're holding you hostage. But oh well. I mean, it is what it is at this point. If you don't like it, suspend your Disney account for however long. I mean, I could suspend the Disney account for the next 2 months, and then I could go back and watch Kenobi and She-Hulk together. You know what I mean?
And the Andor series.
By that time, Andor will be out and done. Yeah.
Yep.
So. I may do that. I mean, who knows? Because I'm not watching anything else on it right now. So anyway. All right. What are we covering next week real quick, Willie? I've kept you too long already.
No, that's okay. There's this stupid movie called The Invitation, and I'm really hoping I can find something else that's going to be much more interesting, because that just doesn't sound like a great week, man.
And in the theaters, I mean, is stuff still coming to the theaters? Because it seems like...
Yeah.
I mean,
that's coming to theaters. This Beast movie is in the theaters. August is never really a great month for new movie releases. Last year was kind of just an anomaly when Disney decided to bring out Shang-Chi on Labor Day weekend, which usually Labor Day weekend is a nothing weekend, but because it was a good movie, people actually went to the theaters. Go figure.
Yeah.
And so, now we're going back to this idea that, well, nobody really goes to theaters in August, so we'll put out the Beast and we'll let Idris Elba box a lion.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Nothing past Labor Day. All right. Well, thank you, my friend. As always, it's entertaining to talk to you as an entertainment reporter. So what more could we ask for, right?
Hey, that's all I can do.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Folks, we are out of time for reels this time. Gotta go. Please like and share. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell if you're on YouTube, if you haven't done that yet. I'm still looking for that 1,000 subscriber mark. I don't know. Apparently, I have to get down on my knees and beg for 1,000 of my 35 or 3,800 followers on Facebook to please go over to YouTube and like and subscribe there. You don't have to watch it. You just go like and subscribe and then come back over to Facebook if you want to do that. I mean, if I have to get down on my knees, I will. No, I won't. But please go over there and do it. Thank you for coming on board. We are out of time. We will see you on Monday.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.